Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another coffee shop Wi-Fi episode. I thought of recording a quick episode and talking about a title that I wrote. Let me see. I wrote this on the 9th of November. Release of the soul through commands of a hidden world. If there's any audio issues, please let me know. And all right, let's get into this. Recently, this has become one of my favorite songs. Okay. I was thinking about causality. I was thinking about the chicken and the egg and which came first. And so, why is there an issue in the human experience in trying to define the actuality of material existence? One of the most profoundest questions I have come across is not what the immaterial means, but what the material means. You see, what are we calling matter? It seems to be the simultaneous position of a mind-moving body and a body projecting mind. There's this idea of the infinite regress. Pretty much, philosophers have been like, okay, what kind of world are we in? There's cause and effect. And for example, let's say a bunch of people are sitting at a restaurant and the waiter brings them their meal. And so imagine suddenly everybody in the restaurant thinks the waiter is the meal, is the creator of the meal. What I'm trying to say is that our eyes open in this world, we start taking reality for granted or for what it looks like, and then we realize that there are dimensions and there's journeys between dimensions before we get to experience what we experience. A bunch of people at a restaurant will know that the food had a chef. And then they will know, the chef knows that the food that it cooked came from somewhere. And so really, the cool thing about being a known creature in an unknown world, having knowledge in an unknown world, is our ability to use that knowledge and try to figure out how things got the way they got, even though if we go really far back in time, we don't have access to accuracy, and if we go really far into the future, we can't. There's an absence of accuracy. What I'm the idea that I'm, trying to share with viewers here is this idea of the infinite regress. Is this idea that when we are the effect of some existential process, we want to go to the causal position of this existential process. Pretty much life is like a domino, and we want to know what the first domino is. In philosophy, they call the first domino the necessary existence, the necessary existent. Okay? And so what the idea is that people are like, okay, something should have caused, I am the effect of a cause, and that cause is an effect of another cause, and eventually we go back to the first cause. How could the first cause be uncaused? One of the mysteries of human reality and the whole cause and effect model is that it makes the whole did the chicken come first or the egg dilemma way more intense. What I'm trying to say is there is a mystery and a metaphysical impossibility when it comes to wondering about the first cause. Now, there is a foundationalist approach, and then there is a coherent approach to this. And so far, this is how much I've looked into the idea. There's probably others who've looked at it better. But the unique thing about life is that our eyes give us access to sight that there's a huge chance nobody else has. So, what is the foundationalist approach, the coherentism? So pretty much the idea is something like, we cannot use the effects of the first cause to explain the first cause. So one approach is that the cause, the domino, the first domino on this planet, in this dimension, was pushed by another dimension, or the actual causal origin of the infinite regress cannot be defined in terms of the effect. That means what started this infinite cycle of cause and effects is something that is either uncaused or it is something where its cause is not from here. It's a different dimensional cause. It's like a square, wondering about the cause of how it's a square and going back to thinking it's a line, it's a dot, and realizing actually the cause of the square was from a cubic dimension. Right, so I am saying it could be that a higher dimensional cause led to the lesser dimensional effect of existence. It could be that on the other side of the coin, we have never been individual physical beings, and we have been the eyes of the space of this world before shapes could contain. The coherent approach is, so pretty much these are the views, okay? So think of it this way, what caused the first domino to move? One answer is it's either uncaused. Another answer could be, in some sense, it was caused from another dimension, undefinable by its effects. Another approach could be that there is a coherentism at work, and the human mind that takes a specification. What that means is nature is like this massive, giant event of multidimensional systems all working simultaneously, and the human mind is the small, the human being is the small in the big, and we're like that small creature in a big world, and we're like, yo, what caused me? What caused this? Not realizing that everything is bound by the presence of the arrival of a network. So it's like this view, where did the chicken or the egg come first? Some people are like, the egg is not from this dimension. The other thing is like, the chicken chicken that created the egg is not from is uncreated chicken, unborn chicken. And then the other approach is, in some sense, the chicken and the egg were simultaneous arrivals. There are mysteries when it comes to existential design and the geometry of the realm. These mysteries have been pushed aside due to the fascination of people with cultural desire. So what do I mean by this? I am pretty much perceiving that this world of ours is taught to us through a story format as belonging to a one view dimension. Okay, but what tends to happen is, imagine you give somebody a Rubik's Cube, right? That person doesn't hold the Rubik's Cube in their hand. That person plays with it, tries to move the Rubik's Cube from different angles, tries to see what works. And similarly, from the moment we're born in this world, what is taking place is massive experiential accumulation and massive informational reorganization by the intelligence. And there are ways that there's stuff that our brain is doing subconsciously. It will scare people. It will scare people how advanced and sophisticated the abilities of our brain are. The brain can do something that in some sense no organ on this planet, nothing else has been capable of doing it with this level of complexity. We are not just physical creatures in a world. We are how the world is living from behind our eyes into in front of our eyes. And so the issue with the modern time is that we have stopped trying to become certain what we are. You see, the future generations, they're going to experience an unnecessary suffering, and they will wonder why, and they will realize it's because some torches were meant to be passed on and they weren't. People think they're just in one world. We're so casually saying, yo, I'm living on Earth, not realizing every day we log into the conscious waking state. The brain, upon every additional stimuli and dimension of information, readjusts itself, repositions itself. What is looking through our eyes is the presence of life independent to its effect. We are the eyes of the world that never closed. We are those eyes. We are the roar of the lion before the lion could open its mouth. We are that potential, right? We are fragile biochemical mechanisms, roaming the surface of the planet. Like the DNA is doing its own thing, and the DNA is leading to psychological inner realm accumulation. There is a hidden multidimensional birthright to every human being. There are ways that the moment is being, that the human consciousness is conditioned not to notice and not to acknowledge. It's another way of saying, imagine somebody just knows English. Okay? Or I'll use myself as an example. Imagine somebody who just when I was young, I just knew how to speak in Farsi. And then I learned English. And then I realized that all the things that had value to me through one system of interpretation can be accessed and viewed from a completely different system of information. What knowledge is how human beings are slowing down the events of nature to be able to make them malleable, to be able to modify them. Really what it is that I ask myself, should I identify with the stillness of the world or should I identify with the movement of the world? When I say stillness and movement, I'm talking about, I have often wondered, should I be in the driver's seat? Should my free will be in the driver's seat of my moment? Or should my free will be in the passenger seat and watch nature's will and the universal will? You know, people think that we are just embodied creatures, not realizing that there are spaces of mind here. There are spaces of mind that eventually even become dehumanized. Just like how puddles form, there is dehumanized spaces as well, you know? Something that I came to a conclusion is, on one level, anytime I try to figure out what the world is, I am adding something to it simultaneously as I am seeing it. You know, it's very hard to say, are we just seeing the world, or are we seeing just how our brain is happening? There's a multidimensionalism here. This multidimensionalism is another way of saying that the logic we use to interpret movement is different, and that there's a different sort of relationship with time in the human experience. How would I say it? It's kind of like this, that our brains have been provided not to just exist, but to mobilize and activate and direct and coordinate existential energy. That means if we just stopped seeing everybody's personalities and we were just like, okay, what kind of being are we seeing? We are seeing a physical system. We're seeing a physical entity create non-physical effects of itself. Right now, when I am speaking, I am like a physical being, and I'm creating a non-physical effect. And this non-physical effect goes into somebody else's ears, causes a non-physical event, which then may become physical. You know, sometimes I wonder if at the end of this life, I would have the privilege of getting to somehow in like a nanosecond or an instant get to see all the different types of beings that listened to these talks and in what ways they listened. You know, right now I have a feeling of people know these talks are important, but there is an hesitation of collective agreement. You know, we are living at a time where there could be the genius strategy, and if the genius strategy doesn't, it's not what people like to feel, and then the people may ignore the genius strategy. You know, there's something very important about life, is that you have something until it leaves you. And I'm this human being who's like, okay, I have existence for 100 years. What shall I do in these 100 years? How shall the species move? Why have my eyes entered this world? What is the world waiting for from me? What is the world expecting from you, not just what you expect from your world? Do you know? I think this is the practicality of the advanced civilization. Do you know, there's this one of the most coolest sentences I've heard, which it's a military sentence, but at the same time it is very accurate when it comes to mysticism, right? That there's this term in the military, they say you must serve before you command. And when it comes to your own mind, when it comes to your ability as a being, you must serve the self that you cannot trust yet. And as you serve, you learn to trust your own presence in different states. You know? Something about life is that it seems to be preparing us for something that we have to do, which we have no idea what it is until it happens. And there is something very admirable in the human being, that because we know, on some deep level, we know that existence is energy containment. We eat food, drink water, wear clothing, adjust our temperatures. Why? You know? What I find release of the soul through commands of a hidden world implies is that I was seriously wondering what, like, WTF, was a mind in the room first or was a body? Because space to me is the closest thing to mind. And if I was to fathom a mind to the cosmos, if I wanted to be that guy who's like, yo, the cosmos has a mind, well, the mind appears as space and then imposition in that space, right? Like, what human beings have access to is not just proof of an existential reality, but the proof of an experiential, non-physical movement alongside the physical movement. The issue with theism and atheism, the issue even with deism, is that when man gets lonely and the fear of death becomes real to him, there is a level of fear that if a person experiences, if you confront the fear of dehumanization, in the sense that the person is trusting that they are their whole moment of being rather than a part of it, all I can say is that human psychology is the tip of a giant dehumanized iceberg. Something moved, and there was somewhere for that movement to move. And so when it comes to causality, it could be that the effect of creation, it could be that creation doesn't exist. Not the world doesn't exist, the action of creation. That means, imagine a cause that thought it turned into an effect, but had from the beginning been the cause. You know, even in from a religious paradigm, God hasn't went anywhere. Man has fallen. Man fell from, let's say, heaven. Truth hasn't gone anywhere. The simulation is creation. You know, in the Vedic, what do you call it? In Vedic mythology, they have 7 upper worlds, and they see Earth as the bottom of the bottom world. And these 7 upper worlds, they go up to Mount Meru, right? So there's this mountain called Mount Meru. At the bottom of it is the Earth dimension, and then there's 7 levels. Okay. Now the top of the level is called Brahma Loka, the highest heaven, and Brahma Loka in Vedic mythology and Vedic thought is that state of being where one no longer reincarnates, because one realizes there has never been a soul. You see, that's the power of the concept of God. When it's as if, is there gods here, or is there the soul? Is there God here, or are there souls here? You see? This is why, to some degree, religion had an attitude towards certain spirituality being blasphemy. Why? Because man has to attribute some sort of power to himself, some sort of power to the world, and some sort of power to a third intervening make-happen force. To me, it feels like our conscious attention. This is gonna sound strange. Like some people have said, like, you know, the world came out of nothing. Some people say the world is made of language, right? I am saying that there seems to be an initial force, and an initial force requires to have the potential of that force. So the mystery of reality is not what pushed the first domino, but what had the potential to even be a domino to fall, right? Something, you know, it, to me, Earth feels like a dimension in control of a higher dimensional being. Just like, imagine somebody in a car. Okay, so when somebody is driving a car, right, they are the car. Like if you drive a lot, right, and truckers, I'm not a trucker, like I don't drive a large truck, but I've observed them in highways, and like to me, truckers are on a genius level. Like they have probably like next level reflexes in real life or something, right? Like they have incredibly sharp attention and timing, right? But what I'm trying to say is that when a person drives a vehicle, after a while of driving a lot, like there was a time where I pretty much drove every day for like long time, right? And I had to do this, and it was a sense of where after some point, all the things that used to be once in the conscious domain, they go into your second nature. And it's another way of saying emotions are the progression of lines of coded knowledge. So what an emotion is like knowledge that is so known, it doesn't need to be assumed through shape anymore. Okay? So, similarly, I sometimes wonder, what if there is a driver to manifestation? What if the world is a vehicle and that which is driving the vehicle is in the world? Now, this is where I could get into a sort of religious implications here, and, you know, one of the most fascinating distinctions between Islam and Christianity, right, where one considers that God is in the world, the other is considering God never is in the world, is beyond the world. Do you know? It's as if it's like, imagine somebody creates a video game and then the video game designer goes in the video game, and now imagine a video game designer where the video game designer is outside of the video game watching other people play the video game, right? To me, to be alive in this world is, one, you gotta trust nature. Why? Because it's one of the initial lessons of our body. Right now, people are not looking online for courses on how to control their heart, how to control their lungs. It's like a lot of the processes of how we're existing or how we're being is involuntarily kept and preserved through the emotion of accepted reality. Whew. Iced coffee up the moment. There is a force here. As much as I could choose to, you know, make myself the main character of my life, this world is too big for one person's success. There is enough space in this world for the most advanced effort of the human species. Many of these Mr. Within talks, there's been a kind of common emotion. I've even said it in some of the talks, where there's this feeling as if there is so much more to the world that the human being is not seeing, that if the human being begins acknowledging the greater reality, it's that everything goes forth. This is, I would say, one of the most profound things I've noticed about life. Feelings come and go. We may feel like a peasant, we may feel like a king. We may feel like the worst, we may feel like the greatest. But everything goes forth, and the most advanced beings are understanding the process of life more than how to it's like when you understand how the game works, it becomes easier to be a player in that game. Now, human beings have not realized the nature of reality is multidimensional, and it's multidimensional beyond our systematic conviction of it. Pretty much, we are this advanced unknown intelligence, and the reflection in the mirror convinced us too soon. What I find the poetic implication of the release of the soul through commands of a hidden world is that human beings are living different lives. They each have a different DNA. They go through different ethnocentric walks, right? And so every person is like a potential, a sort of possible intelligence. Now, release of the soul through commands of a hidden world is the suggestion of this idea that a person is imagine someone's a multidimensional being, and they have shackled and boxed themselves up in one dimension, right? So let's say, for the sake of example, you're a seven-dimensional being, and you are just boxed into one of your dimensions. Okay, so the release of the soul through commands of a hidden world. How would I say it? It's kind of like the authorization for the activation of the greater advanced version of you is not from a world that is visible, because the conditions of the visible are already giving you a sort of shape. I found that when I stopped being me, I was giving a chance for the moment to be unknown again. And that feeling of unknown was a completely different caliber of perception. I don't know how to tell viewers this. I'm spending so far, majority of, not a majority, but let's say, I'm spending a decade of my life wondering, are we just going to act like minds without knowing what the mind is? Are we just going to be satisfied by one-sided stories, never wondering about the opposite of our suffering? When will there come this force? Like, I'm just waiting to see a species. People think that advanced civilization, it comes about through anger. Like, people are going to get fed up and they're going to be like, fuck this, we got to advance. But it doesn't happen that way. The advanced civilization, or any advanced activity in any sector of existence, it occurs only, let's say for a conscious creature with inner realms and outer realms, only when in the inner realms the act has been done. When you know you are an advanced being, your consciousness automatically will find an advanced civilization. Play with it in this life or other lives. There will come a moment where energy will realize, just like the poet Rumi has said, before death takes away all that is given, give away all there is to give. Before that moment comes, when we will enter the world's presence, empty-handed. Do you see? It's kind of like we're tourists in manifestation. And the advanced civilization is the greatest tourist agency in the cosmos. Anyways, I guess this episode's going to be shorter than normal. Final comments. Whoever's been listening to these talks every time I give these live streams, wherever you are that accompany, whoever you are that accompany me in these talks and these live streams, thanks, guys. Sometimes the greatest feeling is to realize that advancement is possible. I want everybody to wonder what sort of command, vision, force is moving them. And then ask themselves, is it just an objective force? Is it just a subjective force? Or could it be that the moment is so simply being that all complexity's beginning is the absence of form? The simplest state of being is a formless state of being. Reality starts from simple, goes towards complexity. Something happens to the simplicity. And you know what I feel it is? I feel it's just like a baker takes a bread out of the oven, or a cake out of the oven, or whatever, some food out of the oven, and the food gets cold and it hardens and it takes shape. Earth seems to be one of the playgrounds of eternity. It becomes, at first, realities are battlefields, but once the person understands the nature of how the power of the moment is moving itself, it's kind of like there was this character in this anime show, DBZ, and the main character's name is Goku. And he has this quote, Saint Goku, Saint, a Saiyan. Okay, Goku. Here's the quote, guys. Power comes in response to a need, not a desire. Those people who deserve power, they become schooled in power. Their karma becomes one where they see those who are authorized. It's kind of like somebody feels like they don't deserve something, so their karma will manifest in a way where they will see somebody else deserve it. For me, the release of the souls through commands of a hidden world, whether it was another dimension that started this dimension, whatever, our desires seem relatively hollow, certain desires of the human being. And to me, the whole world is a sort of mind. It's governed by a mind. That means to be a human being is perhaps the closest thing to being a character, to being a character in your own novel. But the one who wrote the novel is not a character. Inspired by truth, beyond the simulation, truth is technically changeless. It's being. The concept of existence and being is really one of the most bizarre concepts in manifestation. It is manifestation. Ontology is a powerful branch of philosophy. Very powerful. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. Subscribe, share, like, and comment below what your view on the soul is. Thanks for listening, guys. Blessings. Namaste. Rise, mankind. Rise.